Several business groups have called on the government to allow the private sector to access its supply of COVID-19 vaccines, which they can use as booster shots for employees and their families. Management Association of the Philippines, Riza Mantaring, joins us tonight for the updates. Hi, Riza. Glad you could join us on the final word. So what has been the response by the government to allow the private sector to also administer booster shots?
Wait for the response, actually. But we hope to sign the clear rate considering it.
They are considering it. Have they already said that we will get back to you, maybe potentially after National Vaccination Day from November 30 to December 1?
So far, we haven't heard anything from the government.
Why do you think you haven't heard anything from the government? Do you think there's a lack of supply?
I don't think so. As has been mentioned earlier, the supply is already 60 million vaccines right now, approximately 60 million. So definitely there's no shortage of vaccines, which is one reason why we're asking that we be allowed to use the shots that we have procured earlier this year for booster shots for our employees. Because when we procured those vaccines, it was really doing our part to help in the national vaccination drive, given that we really recognize that this has to be a whole of society effort.
That's right. It has to be a whole of society effort. And of course, the private sector worked with the government for this tripartite agreement. You've already done your part. Now it's on the part of the government to give back to the private sector.
Hopefully, they see it that way. we do understand where the government's coming from, because when the vaccines were scarce, then it's understandable that they would want to prioritize and make sure that the most vulnerable groups were vaccinated first. But we don't have a shortage now. In fact, we have the supply keeps growing because the vaccines are arriving faster than they can be dispensed. And we're really afraid that some of those vaccines will expire.
Absolutely, Riza. And of course, the bottom line is allowing the private sector to give boosters to its employees today will also give the economy a jolt. And it could further reopen and create more jobs.
Well, that's right. We've seen already the impact of a high vaccination rate, of the really declining cases, especially in Metro Manila, where the vaccination rate is quite high. But one of the things we're afraid of is that we could lose the benefits that we've gained, because as we've seen in other countries, the effects of the vaccine decline over time. And after 6 months, the recommendation is to have a booster shot. And we're already at that 6 months. So we're afraid that if we don't get booster shots now, this could result in another surge, as we've seen in other countries, and potentially another lockdown, which nobody wants, right?
That's correct, because we've already seen the economy tank in the second quarter of last year all the way up until the first quarter of 2021. And we're seeing the recovery taking place with lockdowns being eased. But Riza, if given the go signal by the government, how soon can the private sector start giving the booster shots?
Tomorrow. We're ready to administer, because the vaccines have been sitting there for months, just waiting to be administered. And, kudos to the government. One reason why they're sitting there was most of the employees were already vaccinated by the time the vaccines arrived, because they were also delayed. So now we're hoping that we can use them for boosters.
And yesterday I spoke with Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto, and he said that they're already finding it a bit difficult to look for those who still haven't received their primary doses. How is the vaccine rollout among the members in the private sector?
It's actually very good. Most of the companies I've spoken with are at vaccination levels of 90% or higher of their workforce are already vaccinated. So it's quite high in a lot of the companies, especially where companies have taken the effort to really educate their employees on the benefits of vaccination. I think of the target population, the last figure I saw from the government was you're about 90% vaccinated already, close to 90% fully vaccinated.
And what is currently the sentiment in the business and private sector, Riza? Because we're seeing our cases consistently going down. Are we ready for alert level 1, especially here in the National Capital Region?
I think we're getting there. There are parameters that the government has set for when you move to alert level 2, alert level 1. And it's our hope that when we do reach that level, that we can move to alert level 1. And if you've gone to the malls, I'm sure you've seen the traffic has increased greatly. I think it's back to 80% of pre-COVID levels already in the malls. But people are still careful. People are wearing masks. You see that people continue to check temperature, to check for all of that. So that's one thing that we hope people will always be cognizant of and careful to follow, keep following minimum public health standards so that we avoid another surge, because vaccination isn't enough. We have to make sure that we're also trying to avoid a resurgence. We have to ensure that we avoid relaxing our guard.
Riza Mantaring from the Management Association of the Philippines, thank you so much for joining us.